welcome to Old Faithful. I'm your host, Matt Trask. My thanks to Haggerty's Music Works. My thanks to the incomparable Johnny Hastings behind the camera. If you occasionally see me staring right here, it's because behind the camera there is a super interesting, I think, precision-based body that I want to know all about, but that's not what today's show is about. Maybe it'll be on later. Oh, now Johnny moved it, so my eyes are going over.
Look at it here.
Please support my friends at Black Hills Blend Espresso. They're now open at 3 locations here in Rapid City. They might not make you happy. They will make you caffeinated. I am so excited, as I say every week on this show, but this is one of my best friends in the whole wide world. And before I turn him loose, I've said this before, you're going to find this hard to believe. There's an amp room downstairs of Haggerty's. It's like my favorite place in the whole world. And I was down there about 4 years ago practicing guitar because nobody looks at you funny if you bring your guitar to a guitar store to practice.
True.
If you go to like the courthouse, they'll look at you funny. Some of them will throw nickels at you. But anyway, so I'm practicing and I hear this jazz guitar coming out of the main. And I went out just like a kindergartner, and here was this man sitting there. And I said, show me that. And he tried mightily for about a year and a half. And it's not his fault that I can't play jazz. Mr. Vern Lavake, it's so nice to have you on the show.
And I'm going to shake your hand.
Okay,
and
we'll do it.
It's been a pleasure to know you, and I want to continue doing so. It's been a hoot to be your friend.
I don't plan on disappearing anytime soon.
That's wonderful. Let's not all.
Right, yeah, let's just keep on
going
on the trucking.
You bet.
Why don't you tell us all about you?
Musically, I started really young, wanting to play piano, but my dad thought that was kind of sissy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Guys don't play piano. He was a man's man, and that wasn't cool, but he kind of acquiesced to guitar. So about 13 years old, I started playing guitar. And a friend of mine had an old Stella Harmony guitar that he loaned me and a Mel Bay book.
Right.
And I became self-taught, where you had an idiot for a teacher and an idiot for a student.
Right.
So there I was doing all of this stuff, playing until my fingers bled. Eventually, I learned one of the chords. So
wow.
So yeah, we got through. Yeah. So. And from then on, it was just a progression of, how things go with young men, little garage bands, and eventually electric guitars. And somewhere in the middle of the service, I bumped into an album that I'd heard one song of on the radio. George Benson playing "Breezin'."
Okay.
Knocked my socks right off.
Right.
That's not even chords I've ever even heard of. But what is he doing on that thing? And I just fell in love with that genre, starting with basically George Benson. And it took a long time, but a friend of mine handed me a Mickey Baker book. He had been trying for some time to learn to play jazz, but he said, I can't do it. He said, I think you've got the fingers for it. So he handed me that book, and 6 chords into Mickey Baker, my world started to change. And I started doing things I had never done before, and seeing through progressions that I hadn't seen before, and it just kind of started to change how I seen music from top to bottom. So that's kind of where I ended up, how I ended up where I'm at musically. Except for the singing years. When I was 13, I started singing bass in our local church in the choir.
Okay.
And have been part of music teams, etc. ever since I was 13 years old, including all-state choir and that kind of stuff.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So, pretty deep into music. In all of that, I never learned to read anything except the bass line when you're singing. It doesn't do a thing for the acts.
Right.
But what do you say? There's a lot of us in that boat.
Sure.
Yeah. So,
One brief aside, this show is about guitars and entertainers and how they make a living. It's about pretty much anything I want it to be about, really.
Sure.
He referenced a guy named Mickey Baker. And when he became my guitar teacher, when this man became my guitar teacher, he highly suggested that I buy the Mickey Baker jazz book. And I forget what it's called right now. It's black and yellow. And so anyway, it was currently written by a man who was extremely skilled at guitar, and there are clips of him on YouTube. And you might not have heard of Mickey Baker. Mickey Baker was, by all accounts, a rather cantankerous, phenomenal guitar player and a true artist. And you would know him from his one commercial hit as Mickey and Sylvia. And he did a song called Love is Strange. And there's one tiny little single note hook that he plays on Les Paul. And you can just about see him in the videos trying not to throw up in the back of his mouth as he plays his little rock and roll part on his one hit.
Well, I did get Mickey down pat if it's cantankerous. I did. I'm right there. I got it. So, woo!
As I understood it, he had reason to be cantankerous. That's a subject for another show.
Another show.
Yeah.
Right.
Why don't you tell us about this guitar eventually when you want to?
I picked this up. In fact, I met an elderly gentleman, more so than myself. He's probably 10 years older than I. And he had this guitar that he had played pretty much his whole life doing nursing homes, just entertaining the elderly in nursing homes. And I said, well, how did that gig pay? And he said, well, I never made a lot of money, but I got a lot of cookies and donuts. His whole career was cookies and donuts at the nursing home. But he was concerned that somebody, and this was a man of faith, he enjoyed that he could sing hymns to the elderly on Sunday and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he was concerned that this guitar would get in the hands of somebody, number one, old enough to appreciate a guitar of this vintage, and also that it would not only be appreciated but continue to be used.
Right.
And so he told me what he wanted for it, and I told him what I'd allow him on it.
Mm-hmm.
We came to an agreement, and I took it home, or I let him leave this at my house. So it happens to be this is a 1961 ES 125 Gibson.
Okay.
I was asked the other day if I've had this all of my life, if it's been in my possession since it was new, and I guess I look a lot older than I am. But I was 6 years old when this was built.
Oh,
so,
okay.
So if that helps the question at all. It's been a great guitar. I've managed to break it in half once. It plays better now after Scott Pack fixed it. It plays better now than it did before I broke it in half. And I think it sounds better. And I certainly appreciate it more. So,
right.
So it's been a treasure to own, in spite of how I've treated it.
Sure.
So, but yeah.
We not only have a vintage guitar, we have a resurrection story. The pickguard has been removed. Was it removed?
When I got it, it had a pickguard.
Okay.
And it was a Gibson pickguard, but it was a pickguard for the TC, I think it was, which had looked like this but had two pickups.
Oh.
And I didn't like that they had an improper pickup, so I built an ebony pickup for it. And in the process of building that, I got used to looking at it like this, and I didn't want to look at it anymore with a pickup on it because I don't really use one anyway.
Right.
A pick guard, I said a pickup,
right.
I'm sorry. But so I don't really use one. My style doesn't require it. I don't beat on my guitars, and so I just like it just how it is. I still have the pieces laying there.
Right.
But they'll probably never go on.
Gibson did make the pickguard easily removable,
yes,
in case you wanted to see more of the top.
One screw right here.
Yeah.
And was there one and one here?
And one there.
And so and it was off.
Right.
And so it was off, and it never went back on.
Did I remember correctly? You also built a ebony pickup surround?
Yes, that's still on there.
Right. Okay.
I didn't like how this fit. Other than that, and the brakes. It's pretty much original, but I didn't like the way that the plastic was supposed to fit the arch top, but did not. So I built this ebony surround to fill the gaps and to bring the whole mechanism a little closer to the strings without the nubs sticking through so far as it did before.
Sure.
I thought that's kind of a not classy way to do things. I'm not criticizing Gibson. Who am I?
Far be it from us.
I've yet to build an L5 on my own, so who am I to criticize the
Mark
masters?
Agnesi, no hate from us.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Just my personal preference was lower poles and a clean back.
Okay.
So I built that little, and almost nobody could tell it, but I like it. I like it.
Well, why I mention it is because you managed to make it look very original. It doesn't stand out at all.
Should I have made it pink?
No, I think you did it right. It looks
okay.
very classy. It adds to the guitar without screaming, I am a replacement.
Yeah.
We would probably guess, but I'll ask, maybe has the pickup been rewound? Is that the original pickup?
It's the original pickup.
It's the original pickup?
Yeah, I looked it over really thoroughly, and I could not tell anything out of place, and neither could Scott. He said, no, that's the real deal.
Right.
That's a real 1961
P90?
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
There was a time when this guitar was the pickup was worth more than the whole guitar. but the market for that has slid in the last year or two, especially since COVID. I think I looked one up the other day. An original P90 was only $200.
Oh.
So it slid quite a ways, but
plumb reasonable.
I'm not offended.
Okay, sure.
I'm gonna live with it.
Right.
And
you're not gonna pull it out and sell it.
Firewood, I've got plenty of.
Right.
I don't need to. No.
Right. Has it been refretted, and is this a new nut?
This I can't tell you.
Okay.
I think it's the original nut.
Okay.
And it does not feel as though it's been refretted. Now, if they did it, I think they did a remarkable job. But I can't tell myself. Maybe Scott could tell me the answer to that question. Some of the guitars I've seen refrets on, there'll be a little ding in here where they peeled a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any of that on this, but it is a 1961.
Sure.
And
it is something of a throwback for 1961. I mean, this was what model did you say it was? I'm sorry.
125, an ES 125.
125. Okay.
Which is a full hollow. There's no block down the side.
A fully hollow with a trapeze tailpiece and a P90 in 1961. Quite obviously, the PAF pickup, which we have talked about some on this show, had been in guitars for 2 years at that point. But this was a P90 guitar.
Yep.
And we would call this a plain maple top. I am among the huge fans of plain maple tops.
Yes, I like them also.
I think they're very understated.
The other thing I really love about this, especially in my geriatric years,
he said that, not me,
is that I can play on stage for an hour or two and not have the extreme pain, of my shattered vertebrae just screaming at me. Because it just doesn't weigh anything.
Right.
There's no block in there for additional weight, and I can play hours comfortably. Whereas sometimes my Strat starts to talk to me in other ways.
Sure.
Yeah.
You don't have to get all that geriatric. Was that the word you used to appreciate? I have a Dan Electro U2 reissue. I think they're made out of old countertops.
Yes.
I'm not sure, but
you're right.
It's so nice to put that on. You're like, I don't even care if I can't play this thing. It's so light.
Yep.
Do we have any more to talk about this guitar?
I don't know what else there could possibly be to cover.
Okay.